Hello, and welcome to Women in Workforce. I'm Carrie Rosingana, CEO of Capital Area Michigan Works. Thanks so much for spending time with us today. We're really glad to have you. I'll be your host today as we bring together women in positions of leadership to help shine a spotlight on their workforce impacts while also addressing and discussing those disparities and challenges that we know are unique to women in the workforce.
And I'm Kate Snyder. I'm the CEO and founder at Piper & Gold Public Relations, and I'll be joining Carrie each episode as co-host. We've had the privilege to work together for decades now in workforce development in the greater Lansing area and beyond, and we're really excited to be able to bring together this group of people to have a discussion today and to really talk about the things that women face professionally and personally as we return for our second season.
So each episode, we have a roundtable style discussion with our fellow community leaders and just allow for an opportunity for them to be honest and to share some of those experiences that they've had. And today, we're really fortunate to be at Risky Studios in East Lansing, Michigan, and we're really grateful that you've chosen to join us. So let's get started, Kate.
All right. So we've got this awesome group of female leaders together, and I know that our bios alone could fill the whole episode. So we're going to ask you to introduce yourselves by summing up your bio in just one sentence.
And so I'll give you just a little bit of an example because we really want to normalize being humans as leaders, and that's really important for us during today's discussion. So we're going to ask each of you to also go a little bit behind that bio and to tell us what you might want people to know or understand that they wouldn't read about your bio on paper. So for me, my entire service has been in positions serving humans. I am a human-centered practitioner who believes strongly in helping people. My behind the bio is I am a forever Michigander. I love Michigan. I can't imagine living anywhere else, and I love living in the greater Lansing area because I know the community that's here and the supports that are in place to help make people successful and really build those relationships that help people thrive. So, Kate, do you want to share your one-sentence bio and what's behind the bio?
Yeah, so I share that value of being people-centered. I just really believe that people matter. People matter. And so my whole career, whether that was working in government or higher education or now as a CEO, my employees matter, but also the clients we serve matter, and the people that they're trying to support and serve matter. I've always worked in ways in which I'm working toward positive social change and helping and supporting and uplifting people who've been historically oppressed or excluded. And behind the bio, I love to create. I really love to perennial garden. I love to build Lego sets and embroider, and I just like to make things with my hands. I think because I do so much with my mind as my job that then when I come home, I like to make with my hands.
That's very much you, Kate.
Very much me.
So I get the pleasure of introducing our very first guest and asking for her to share her bio. And our first guest we get to welcome is Michelle Massey, who is the Vice President of Community Outreach and Customer Operations at TechSmith. So Michelle, you get to be the first to share your own one-sentence bio and what's behind your bio.
Well, there's nothing like being the first.
Right. You're up for the challenge.
I'm up for the challenge.
For it.
Not first, you're last.
Right, exactly. Well, I am a 25-plus year IT industry expert. I am one of the few people that I know that have been in the same field for their entire career. I graduated with a degree and I stuck with it. But I have had a number of different roles during that career in leadership, operations, customer support, just a lot of different aspects. And so you can have a career in one field and really get a wealth of experience. Behind the scenes, I am a Air Force brat, and I grew up overseas in the UK, in Germany, Graduated high school in Italy and left my family in Italy to come to Michigan State University to go to college. And what I took away from all of that diversity are three mantras that I live by. One is think twice, speak once. The second one is carry your sunshine inside of you. And the third one is bloom where you're planted. And those have helped me not only get through going to different schools about every 2 years or so, but also the diversity that comes with being in an IT industry, but not being an IT person. I bring that human aspect to IT.
You sure do. We're so lucky to have you, and I learned a lot of new things about you with what you shared, so thanks so much.
You're welcome.
All right. So next up, I get to introduce you to Erika Brown-Binion. She is the executive director at the Refugee Development Center. So Erika, can you share your one-sentence bio and what's behind it?
One sentence bio. So I think I would describe myself as an educator, but the way that I've been in education since I graduated college, and I can't even remember how long now, maybe 25 years. Also, but as an educator, I look at myself as a lifelong learner too, because I am always learning from whoever my audience is. So whether it be in the classroom when I was teaching either youth or adults, or now as the executive director, I am constantly learning from not only my staff, but all of the people that we have the pleasure of working with every day. So that's bio. Behind the bio, kind of like you, Carrie, love Michigan, but I love Flint even more. I'm a Flint girl.
Hey.
And so I feel like I left Flint with a grit that only exists there, I think.
Yeah.
It probably exists some other places, but it's a big part of who I am and what I bring, I think, to my work and my life and my family and all of the above. So.
Love it.
So our final guest today that I have the distinct pleasure of introducing to you all is Michele Ureste, who is our Executive Director of the Workforce Intelligence Network, or WIN as we affectionately call it. Michele, last but not least, what's your one-sentence bio and what's behind the bio?
Well, I'm a first-generation Greek American, and I have a master's in public administration. My entire career has been in an external-facing public service role. I served 15 years in quality at an automotive trade association, Automotive Industry Action Group, the OEM trade association that I refer to as the Automotive Congress, where we developed the quality system standards, and then served 2 terms as the full-time mayor of the fifth largest of 1,240 townships in Michigan. And then I've been at WIN for 8 years as the executive director CEO, and it is much more difficult running a nonprofit than it is a township with a guaranteed revenue stream. So I do a lot of grant writing. It's become my hobby. I used to have hobbies like running and tennis and golf and such, but it's a passion. I love grant writing, and it's really been gratifying being in the workforce system, changing lives every day.
I love it. Okay, so y'all, we originally last season had a series of 5 questions to discuss, and we realized we only ever make it through one of them. Winning.
Have good conversation.
Hashtag winning. So
That's right.
we have our vase of questions, and I am going to just pull out one question about career paths, workforce, all that stuff for us to get to talk through today. So, I like this. I wrote it, but I like it. I don't know if I wrote it. So, what's a specific time in your career where you felt empowered and valued?
That is a good one.
Isn't it? I don't think we've had this question
We've not
yet.
had this question yet. Feels very appropriate.
Where you felt empowered and valued. Yeah, like we talk about the disparities. We talk about the microaggressions, the slights, the frustrations. But like, when's the time where you felt empowered, you felt valued?
And anybody can start it if you have immediate thoughts.
I can kick it off.
That'd be great, Michele.
What is intriguing about that question is that it's empowered and valued, not or.
Yes.
And there are a lot of times where I have felt empowered, but not sure that what I do is going to be valued, or I feel that I'm valued, but once I make a decision, am I really going to be supported because I was empowered to make, that decision? And I guess, unfortunately or fortunately, in my current role that I've been in for 2.5 years at TechSmith, I have finally found a position where I am empowered and valued. Mm-hmm. And what has really put that in place is my role as a customer support leader, where you have agents that have a number of different tasks, from chatting with customers, being the first line respondents. But how do you take a team of individuals and use your empowerment to help them feel valued? And a quick anecdote, they are on the phones. That's their job, to take care of our customers. We did an experiment where they could take one day off of the phones. And I felt empowered to make that decision. And I felt valued because I knew that if it proved itself out, that it would not only be valuable to the employees, but it would be valuable to the corporation. And so now the agents that are on the phones, they only answer the phones 4 days a week now. And you talk about something making a huge difference. It has made a huge difference. And it hasn't impacted the customer, because, believe it or not, people don't want to talk on the phone anymore. No. they want to not the same way. They want to text. They want to chat via email. They want to put in a ticket. They don't necessarily pick up the phone and call. So it was a great example for me of being able to feel empowered and being valued at the exact same time.
It's a great example.
Other thoughts?
In my current role, I really feel valued by my board. They always take the time, especially Jennifer Llewellyn. She really has left an imprint on me. She always takes a moment to reflect on something somebody did. We'll put together these pretty long board packets with all of our, progress and updates, but she'll always pull something out and recognize somebody. And so I try to do that more and more with my team. And one of the most gratifying moments at WIN was when one of my Michigan Alliance for Greater Mobility Advancement governing board members, MAGMA.
We need an acronym for that.
It's MAGMA.
We had to make it easier.
It's MAGMA, but they're an employer-led collaborative that we manage. And one of the co-chairs actually nominated me for a Workforce Champion award and wrote a 6-page memo, totally unprovoked. It's just, I wrote this to nominate you, and then went to the OCC Chancellor, Peter Provenzano, to ask for a letter to support that nomination. And he just wrote the most beautiful letter about, the grant strategies I've developed as masterful, and it was just so amazing. I've held on to those, and I cherish that moment. When I was in public office, I was empowered there as well, and I felt valued by my constituents because I took it as a public service role. And I solved problems every day for constituents. I always found a way to uphold the ordinance and meet their needs. And when I did not seek a third term in office because I wanted to pursue my tenure plan to run a nonprofit with an important purpose, a lot of the residents, the developers, they just tried to encourage me 6 months to seek that third term. So I felt very valued.
I could see that.
And I think both of what you said resonate with me. I think the point that you made, Michelle, first, you're both Michelle. So, but not the or, being empowered and valued. Because I can think of a lot of times where I felt empowered to do something, but maybe the value wasn't there, right? Or vice versa. So I think I'm seeking a time as I think of my memory but also the first thing that came to my mind is when I became director at RDC. I've been with RDC for 16 plus years. My 17-year-old was in a front pack on my chest when I was first teaching in a classroom at the RDC, and I've held many different roles. But 10 years ago when I became director, I think the way that the board led and allowed me and empowered me to lead and valued and trusted
That's a good one.
the decision making was very important, because that is how I lead my staff, right?
That's right.
I am giving trust and empowerment and value into the decisions that my team leads make and all of our staff. And I think that has created a culture at the RDC that is, it makes me proud every single day. Like, I think that's what makes me get up in the morning. That's what drives me. And it comes from, I think it starts with how my board has
That's right.
Has led, and I have heard other stories of boards that aren't as healthy, and so I think
Really diplomatic way to say it.
Very diplomatic.
I think I'm just really grateful for that, because it was the first time that I'm leading in that way, leading a nonprofit and taking on all of those spaces and decision making and how do we grow. We were in a tricky time at the RDC. Trying to determine where we would be in a few years. And I'm a grant writer too, right? How are we going to survive and continue to grow and meet the needs of our families? That's always the critical question, right? It's not just seeking any funds, it's seeking the funds that will serve our mission. And so how do we continue to do that in a way that honors our mission and grows our staff and serves the people that utilize our services? So with all of those questions continuing, to swirl around, to have leadership that gives trust to you and is empowering and valuing your decision making is, I think, that's
Well said. As I learned when I was at the Automotive Congress, and I had 12 committees that I facilitated of subject matter experts from across the industry to develop standards. You could see how cultures will permeate an organization top to bottom without knowing it. You can tell who the individual was from Ford, GM, Chrysler, just based on their environments. And a culture permeates an organization, and it starts at the top with the board.
It's so interesting. When you first said that, valued and empowered, not or. It made me start thinking about what is it that makes it the and, right? And then you said the trust. And that's what I keep thinking in my head is there's that trust component. One of the things I often see, and I would love your thoughts on kind of how you would challenge fellow leaders to make it and, is I often see a struggle of wanting people to be empowered. Like, I want people to feel empowered, to be empowered. But I don't know if it's fear-based, if it's self-confidence-based, if it's that they're not getting the right supports, if it's that something is happening, after the fact that's making them feel like they weren't actually empowered. But, people who hear the words like, I trust you to do this, you're empowered to do this, but really don't feel it, don't believe it. Like, what can we do as leaders to really help that sink in for people and give them that, particularly, women in the workforce, I think, face this much more frequently, that confidence that, like, you will be safe if this all goes to hell. Like, you're okay. It's okay if you fail, but also you have the opportunity to succeed. Take this and run with it. You don't need permission? Like, how do you help that sink in for folks?
Kate, as you were talking about that, I was thinking along the lines of we have to also, as leaders, think about people are going to make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
I make mistakes. Just because we're in a leadership role doesn't mean that we're, immune to the same challenges and the struggles, right? So I think, too, it's creating that culture of the and is very important and letting them know it's okay. You're learning. If you make a mistake, you don't have anything to be fearful of. Let's talk about this and like trying to eliminate some of those underlying things that sometimes can permeate cultures that are not so positive. And so that was something I was thinking about too as you were talking about what builds that trust too, right?
I think words matter.
They do.
And one of the words that we use is experimentation.
Ooh, I like that.
So using the word experimentation lets the person know that we are going to experiment. But we are. We're going to experiment with this concept.
That.
Because when you experiment, right, every experiment isn't successful the first time around.
Right.
Sometimes you have to tweak the formula a little bit until you get it right. And you know what? Sometimes you scrap it. Right. And that's okay as well. So experimentation is really important when trying to convey to people that you trust them, that they're empowered to do something, and regardless of the results, they're going to still be valuable because we're going to learn something that we didn't know before. So when people don't feel like they're chained to their opinion or to a risk that they may want to take, and they can sort of pull it back, now you have started to create an environment where people feel comfortable and safe and trusted and all of those other words. But as a leader, you have to do the same thing.
Agreed.
you really have to take that big thing that may be out there, whether it's hybrid work, and so we're going to experiment with it. Yeah, everybody wants you to come back 5 days a week, but let's experiment and let's see what happens. And now people are invested in those decisions as well, and they're going to take ownership for them when you're not around, which is super important to anything succeeding.
I love every single bit of that. Every word of it.
Yeah, the experimentation really resonates because you want to convey that it's okay to fail. You don't have to be afraid of failure. But the moment that that's what you lead with, I can see how it would be so easy to hear, I expect you to fail. Right. I'm empowering you, but I do also think you're going to tank this one. So, just so you know. But experimentation, there's that implication of an iterative process, right? There's that implication that, that it's not necessarily black or white failure, right? Black or white success. That it's try this, tweak this, always working toward that end result. And so that's such a great mindset shift when trying to talk about it and think about it, frankly. Oh, love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important to think of the moving forward part, right? Like we are always trying something else, and it's okay to take that risk, to figure out what is the best way. We don't all have the best answers, so let's hear like what is your idea to improve this, or how do you see it, because your perspective is different than mine. It's not having that top down, I have all the answers. It is a collective energy. It's funny that you say that. One of our questions in job interviews is trying to get at flexibility and risk taking and how do you deal with change, because our environment is constantly having to pivot and think of new ways to do things. There is no one way. And so experimenting and taking risks and then figuring out which part worked and which didn't and where did we fail. Like we're always learning from that. I love that. That's
especially in a grant dynamic that you both mentioned. I mean, you are constantly changing and trying new things and proposing this is what we're going to try to do.
Right.
Along the way, you figure out this may not work the way we thought we wrote down.
This wasn't quite exactly.
Exactly.
That's right. I think I mentioned that I had 15 years in quality, so I'm a Six Sigma black belt and always been in that, root cause analysis, problem solving mindset, and always like to vet ideas in a team environment. So as the second executive director CEO of WIN, I maintained that team-centric management style. And I don't always vet with my, director, VP. I vet with everybody on my team. I'll just randomly call and I have this grant strategy idea, and I like to vet everything that way with the team. And I think the team-centric style has really empowered the whole team. And, I think it's okay to make mistakes, but if you're leading by example and you're vetting your ideas before you effectuate those ideas, your team is going to do the same thing. They're going to go through those motions and have less chance for error. But, at the end of the day, I take ownership if I make a mistake. Right. And I think they also take ownership too when they see you step up if you've made a mistake, and didn't fully vet something.
Good point.
All right.
All really good points.
Yeah. So on those good points.
Time for the next segment already.
Let's do it. It's go time.
So this section is called Facts and Feelings. And have you ever heard the phrase, think about the facts and not how you feel about it, or not the feelings part? Well, today we want to flip that a little bit. We want to talk about facts and the way they make you feel. So I'm going to share some related facts. And we want you to share with us any reactions you have to them, how they emotionally make you feel. So, you ready? Okay. The number of female apprentices has more than doubled from 2014 to 2022 nationally, and women now make up approximately 13.8% of active apprentices compared to 9.4% in fiscal year 2014. And this is according to Apprenticeships USA, a Women in Apprenticeship Model report. But we also know that 22.2% of apprentices in the capital area are women, the highest regional percentage in the state. So this is according to our Michigan Works apprenticeship report. But, there's always a but, right?
Dun, dun, dun. We wouldn't be
That's
here
right.
if there weren't disparities.
But that's still under 2,200 active women apprentices in Michigan in 2021, accounting for only 11.6% of all active apprentices. And only 22% of female apprentices in Michigan are Black women. So, those are a lot of data points. What do you think when you hear those facts?
Well, I just cited those facts in a grant application that I submitted on Tuesday.
You did.
Fresh.
And actually, when the grant, looking at the grant funding opportunity announcement requirements to identify an equity gap that you want to address, that is the area I pulled out because our Michigan stats are so low as compared to the national average. The average for women in African American population is about 12% of all apprentices, as compared to an average of about 50% for female and 39.1% for African American in the country. So we want to close that, right? Close that gap. And I think we have strong leadership in the DOL Office of Apprenticeship right now that, that leadership in that office is really going to help to support where all of the nonprofit organizations that are supporting and developing new registered apprenticeship programs are going. So really that leadership in the OA office is a good support right now to be able to achieve some good progress in that area. Otherwise, I might have not addressed that as an equity gap.
What you said about, really so often when we see disparities in certain areas like this, I think so often we we jump to the solutions of like how to have the conversations around the dinner table, how to have the conversations in the classroom or in a counselor's office, how to have the conversations as employers. But what you speak to is the importance of systemic level support. Like we have to have all of those things to be able to really change any form of systemic oppression and disparity. Like you have to have the conversations in the households. You have to have the supports at schools, but you also have to be able to have the funding in the communities for employers to be able to make that happen. And those come from those systemic level changes that people just don't, if you haven't worked in government or worked closely with government, you just see these huge budget numbers and think like, what do they do? What do they do? But it's the creation of those systems, the sustainability and funding, the evidence-based models that are shared across regions and states that make a huge difference. And we don't get to see behind that curtain nearly as often as I think we can and should to understand how change can happen in so many different ways.
We've been blessed in Michigan. We've received a lot of apprenticeship funding, a lot of apprenticeship grants. I think that a lot of the non-traditional fields that women are in general, if the leadership that signs off on standards is going to stall out for months and years, and it's taken a lot of people's time to bring the employers to the table to offer apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is earn while you learn. It reduces our barriers to employment. If you can earn an income while you achieve your, you obtain a degree or certification and employment, it addresses a lot of barriers to workforce, but it's hard to always bring the employers to the table. We're good at that. And we can write those standards, we can bring those standards forward, but if there are delays in processing that, you lose the employers, you lose the apprentices in the meantime, and then that's why you see the percentages that we have in Michigan.
It's interesting.
Leadership is important.
It is. I agree with you completely. When I looked at even our capital area numbers, on one hand, emotionally, I feel very proud. We're at 22.2%. We're the highest in the state for women in apprenticeship roles in the capital area. At the same time, I'm proud of 22.2%.
Yeah, you're proud of less than 1 in 4.
Right. And it's kind of this mixed emotion, very bittersweet feeling because on one hand, I'm competitive. I want us to be the best because that means that we're helping people. And we're making a difference, and we're showing them these other models that work. But I'm also just frustrated that we still have so much work to do to get to a place of equity. And when you start to add in other factors or different characterizations, then you see the differences that still have even more work here. I mean, it's a lot to think about. So it's a balance.
And never settle. Like, that's what I was thinking. Like, we can celebrate our numbers a little bit, but if we really look at it, like we said, 1 in 4, right? We're settling. So how can we always strive for something better and look for better representation too? I think that was one of the other statistics. Like, how can we do a better job of starting young and making sure that all people have access to those same resources and that we're intentional about that.
So we talk about the 1 in 4, right? Like fewer than 1 in 4 apprentices are female. Fewer than 1 in 4 female apprentices are Black. Like, and that isn't, I would be very interested to look at other populations of color and see, we can guess, we can all make assumptions at how low the representation is. So yeah, like that we're doing so much better in so many of the disparity areas, whether it's the wage gap or opportunities or whatever, really, yeah.
It's a mixed bag, right?
How do you keep going? Like from a feelings standpoint, it's like, how do you keep going when sometimes you've been doing this for decades, like you said 25 years in IT. I'm sure you've seen it get better, and you still look around how many rooms and go,
Yep. Still sometimes the only one in the room.
yeah. So, like, how do you keep yourself going?
Yeah. I think that it is understanding that you can't boil the ocean.
Oh my gosh, I love that phrase.
That you can make.
I just reacted on such like a deep. I have never heard that phrase before, and I reacted on
I
such
love
a
it.
deep,
I love it.
visceral level. I have like sunk into my chair. I
Had a whole lot of mic drops today.
Yeah, I am the gif of that lady sliding to the floor in the pink suit. Like, you can't boil the ocean. I'm done now. See y'all later. Carry on. Sorry, because you were dropping wisdom, and I just couldn't even absorb it all.
That's great. But it's true. Sometimes if we look too large, we can get discouraged.
Yeah.
And what we have to remember, especially in our community, that we've made a difference to that one and that one and that one and four and that one and four and that one and four. And that one has a huge community that they can influence. So it's not all on us all the time as leaders in the community. Our job is to make sure that there are opportunities and that there is equity in people getting those opportunities. Once people avail themselves of that opportunity, that's where you start getting that grassroots support. That's where you start looking around one day and saying, how do we get to 22%? Or how do we get to 45%? Or how do we, I don't think it's ever going to be anything that we can pinpoint and say, that was it. That because if someone knew what the it was, we'd all be doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And so we really have to let people be that voice back into the community, because that's how we meet people where they're at. Because we're not all at where people are at. So we have to take the people that are availing themselves of the opportunity to go back in their communities and to do the table discussions at dinner and to do all of those things. And once people see it, a lot of times you have to see it. So when that person gets through that program and now they're not working 2 or 3 jobs, they're working 1 job and they're getting paid well, then people say, I want some of that. How did you do that?
Right,
I want to achieve what you've achieved.
Yeah.
So it really has to be us providing the mechanisms through grants and all the great things that you do as a nonprofit. And then we have to empower people to go back into their communities and make that difference.
But having that number is important. As the old adage goes, you can't manage unless you measure. And, I was invited. One of my career-defining moments was the keynote for a Biden administration special Department of Labor conference in last November. And I spoke to my friends at the Department of Labor during that opportunity about the Michigan stats. And they, just dismissed it. And I repeated it. And we've had some change. And I'm the eternal optimist. So I feel like we're ready. We're gonna achieve that national average. And my career, I started out at Ford Motor Company in TV. With FCN News, $17,000 a year as a female. Then I went to Ford Purchasing. I launched this whole process of procuring contract personnel, recruiting world, to all manufacturing vehicle operations, $35,000 a year. And then I went to AIAG, representing the entire automotive industry, the Big 3 Task Force on Quality, and it went up a little bit. But there are a lot of, and it's irritating when you hear the stats about underrepresented groups and you don't see the needle move too much. At the same time, I am an eternal optimist, and I'm doing what I can to really push forward for women, for our disadvantaged communities. It's very important that we all work on that, and we are all mindful of the disparities that exist. You see it in the numbers today.
And it brings up again didn't think this would be my soapbox today, but apparently it's going to be the systemic opportunities to support equity. Because when you're looking at apprenticeship programs, right, USDOL registered apprenticeships, it's a thing not a lot of people are super familiar with if you haven't spent lots of time in workforce development or certain industries, right? But like part of apprenticeships is like the wages are consistent, they're defined. And so even in thinking about how do we get representation equity in apprenticeships, in doing that, we're also making great strides in wage equity because those are predetermined, those are predefined. There aren't the implicit biases affecting who gets what starting wage offer. Like it is a part of your program and you come in with that expectation of equity. And so, you know, like because it's a part of these registered apprenticeship, you know, systems and models that's not what they're there for. They're not there to create wage equity, right? They're there to fill in-demand occupations that require high levels of on-the-job training in combination with, you know, academic skills training. But man, what a tool in wage equity as well.
Yeah. And Erika, I think about you a lot too with the newcomers that you're working with who oftentimes arrive with so many skills, and it may just be that their credential isn't recognized. To have those opportunities to enter into some work-based learning experiences where they can use those skills they have. I have to imagine that's something that would be intriguing for a lot of those folks you're working with.
Yeah, it's so critical, and it's so important that we're recognizing all of the strengths that come to the table. And I don't think that opportunity is always available. So it's our job to make sure that that voice is available and that people get the opportunity to access resources like you're talking about. It's baby steps. It's like you have to keep moving forward all the time, and it's not going to be perfect. But there are so many opportunities that are missed because skills are not recognized, strengths are not recognized. So it's, a big part of the advocacy in our work to make sure that that happens and that these pathways are opened up for people. And all it does is impact the greater good of our community as a whole. So it's really important that, just sitting in this room, all of us sticking together, I'm ready to go out and talk more about how we can all work together because it is that collective good, right? I think there's so many opportunities between the five of us sitting.
Yeah, we just need more individuals in workforce. Michigan, we're so upside down. And do you work closely with Global Detroit and all the Michigan Works agencies?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, when the Wind Data research team did a 5-year outlook through 2024, we estimated just by comparing real-time job posting information with post-secondary degree and certification completers, about 811,000 individuals or 811,000 positions would go unfilled. We're really upside down on the number of people that we have in Michigan to do these important jobs. And at the same time, economic development is bring a new business every day. And it seems like there's an imbalance with economic development and talent development. You know, we really need the entire workforce system to address our challenges and immigrate. I mentioned I'm a Greek first generation Greek American, and my father came and he was a tool and die apprentice, and then he got his degree from MSU. Couldn't speak the language, but he pushed. And this country was really founded on hardworking immigrants. Absolutely. And I think we bring so much more opportunity than ever before. I mean, there's so many more opportunities than I ever had for our young leaders. And it seems like right now, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned during the session today that in a lot of our MAGMA board meetings with the 5 OEMs and tier 1s that talk about occupational skills needs requirements and those soft skills needs, it seems like more and more that critical thinking is a requirement. You see it more and more in and job descriptions. And I think, you know, there's more to be done in that discipline as well to really move Michigan forward.
And I think availing ourselves of things that are already here, for example, Lansing Promise is a really good pipeline for getting into some of these programs because the children have already been identified.
Right.
They're already part of a cycle of success. And to give them that opportunity to be able to avail themselves of it because their family situations may not have changed, and they may know of that program, but not all the other inroads that can come in through that program. And I am not in the nonprofit world, but I have probably sat on about 20 different boards through my career. And I have a true appreciation for what nonprofits do in order to make sure that there's stability, whether it's in workforce development, whether it's in underrepresented and underserved communities, and getting together and knowing how to leverage all of those resources can only go to the betterment of our community.
As we close out today, you know, we talked a lot about government, nonprofit, things like that, but Michelle, you and I, you know, we're in the private sector.
Yes.
And yet, you know, we know each other in part. Well, really, we know each other because of our service on different organizations, like boards, you know, whether that's the LEAP board or it's way back in the day, I think it was the Capital Area IT Council where we first met each other, or the Impression 5, you know, board involvement that we both have. I would just love to hear your personal thoughts on why it's so essential that for-profit organizations speak up about our values, our priorities, and we engage outside of our little for-profit bubbles in ways that aren't necessarily about sales.
Absolutely. It's funny because common sense isn't always common practice. And to me, it is common sense that if you have a business that is built on employees that live and work and play in a community, then that as a business is where you want to be. And if you want to keep those employees, especially in this day and age, then as a for-profit company, in order to get and retain the best, then you need to reinvest back into that community where their kids go to school, where there are different nonprofits that are providing services to that community. To me, it's just like paying a tax. This is a tax that we owe back to our community as a for-profit organization that is raising our funds and our income from this community. Because if you don't, then you can't lament about what is going on in this community. If you can't find good workers and you're not investing in Capital Area Michigan Works, then you can't really complain. I mean, you can, but it doesn't make any sense. If you want to bring good businesses into this area, then you need to invest in LEAP. If you want to make sure that there are good educational opportunities, then Lansing Promise is maybe where you need to go. But each business, outside of what they raise money for their own private endeavors, you have to give back, or the community that you are in will no longer be a community that you can thrive and make a profit in. So to me, it is just common sense that you invest.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap up the conversation. So, you know, I could listen to the three of you share stories for hours, but we do have to wrap up our conversation. I do hope, though, that this won't be the end of the conversation among us and out in the world, too. So we're going to give you a couple seconds to think about your biggest takeaways. We're going to ask you to summarize kind of in 3 words what your biggest takeaways are or what you hope people will take away. And while we do that, Carrie's going to close us out.
And I really just want to start while you're thinking, by thanking each of you for spending some time with us today. I know how busy your schedules are. I know how much you give back in your own communities, and this is just another example of that. So Michelle Massey, Vice President of Community Outreach and Customer Operations at TechSmith, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Erika Brown-Binion, Executive Director of the Refugee Development Center, or RDC as we affectionately call it here. Thank you for sitting and spending some time with us today.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
And Michele Ureste, Executive Director of the Workforce Intelligence Network, or WIN. We're so glad that you could come to today.
Thank you.
So I will start by just giving you my 3 words that I heard from, or that came to mind when listening to you all today. It's we create change. I think it is about that collective impact. We talked about you can't do it alone, and making an impact on one person, what that can then lead others to make a change in the future is really unknown, and you don't know that unless we all come together. So Erika?
I think, there's so many. This has been a really great conversation. Thank you so much for inviting us. The words right now that I'm going to think of are listen and learn. I think that has been a common thread in a lot of our experiences and a lot of the ways that we lead. We need to listen to our constituents, to our families, to our funders, to our community, and we learn from each other. And we're constantly growing. It's those baby steps.
Michelle?
For me, it's macro level understanding and change.
Okay, that was deep. Mine is not that deep. Mine is take the ball and run with it.
Oh, that's good.
I love it.
Well, and that's why it's always interesting when we ask for 3 words at the end, the differences that we all pull out of the conversations or the inspiration we want to leave our listeners with. So I always love getting to hear what everybody says. Kate, how about you for this session?
Yeah, so for me, and over or. I still, that trust component of value and empowerment. And for me, it's, in today's 3 words, it's a very personal challenge to myself of how do I do a better job of ensuring that I'm communicating the and being really intentional and purposeful to provide that empowerment support. So and over or.
It's really good, Kate. Thank you so much again, everybody, for joining us.
This is great.
Yep. It was really great. And I can't wait to send it out to the world for everybody to get to hear.
Fly free episode.
So on that note, I'm Carrie Rosingana, CEO of Capital Area Michigan Works.
And I am Kate Snyder, CEO of Piper & Gould Public Relations. We cannot wait to welcome a new group of guests for more amazing conversations like this in our Women in Workforce series. Thank you for joining us.